Hello class, this is our lesson for section 1.3 which deals with trigonometric functions. You're going to want to start taking some better notes probably if you haven't been over sections from here on out. If you haven't done anything with trig before, depending on what class you took last year, this may be brand new, so I'm kind of assuming that that's the case. There may be some of you that already know some of this information, and so that should help you as you go through this topic. The other thing is I was having some trouble with some of my videos covering up some of what I wrote with my picture in the corner. I think I figured out kind of how to fix some of that, but in the meantime, today, I'm probably going to take my camera piece off of this lesson just so it's a little bit easier for you to see some of the questions. And so we'll get started from there. Okay, the first slide here is something you definitely want to have just off to the side written down so you are aware of it. It deals with what are known as the 6 trig functions. The 3 in the first column, sine, cosine, and tangent, are the ones that you want to know really, really well. The pieces are x, y, and r. So x and y are like an ordered pair, x and y, like we did in the other sections. And then r is that hypotenuse of a right triangle, or the c value of the Pythagorean theorem. It's denoted r because it's a radius of a circle. Technically, we'll get to more of that later. What you want to do is when you draw an angle out, you always want to make a triangle. Notice at the bottom it says make a triangle with the horizontal. If you do that, you can start to use something like SOHCAHTOA if you wanted, but if you make it with the y-axis, it will actually be incorrect with the vertical axis. So you want to make sure that you always make your triangle with the y or the x-axis, the horizontal, and also know what x, y, and r are going to be in these cases. Then sine of theta, so sine of the angle, is going to be y over r, cosine is x over r, and tangent is y over x. And then the other three, sine and cosecant, are reciprocals. So if it's y over r, it's r over y. Cosine and secant are reciprocals, and then tangent and cotangent. So you want to make sure of that. I think we've got a typo right here. This part for cotangent should say x over y. I'll make a note of that in our video, but you want to make a note of that. This one right here, cotangent, I had miswritten it, and it should be x over y. So the first group of problems that you're going to deal with will just be, here's an ordered pair, and then find the trig functions. So for this question right here, okay, you have the point 4, -3. So you go over to the right 4 and down 3. So that ordered pair is over here in quadrant 4. You just do Pythagorean theorem to figure out what's missing, the x, y, and r values. So the x and y values are 3 and -4. You just do Pythagorean theorem, find r by taking the square root of that, and that's 5. And then it says to find the values of the 6 trig functions. Now here's what you want to do. You want to find the original 3. So you want to find sine, cosine, tangent. So find those 3 first. So y over r, so y is -3, r is 5. Cosine, 4 over 5 for x over r. Y over x would be tangent. And then you don't want to really memorize the other ones. Just know that they're the reciprocals of sine, cosine, tangent. So I rarely look at the second group very often. It's more so the first group, and then you just do their reciprocals. This one has a little bit more detail. So it says to look at the position of the ordered pair. So -4 up root 5. That would just put you in quadrant 2. You don't really care how accurate your picture is, but then from there you do Pythagorean theorem. Figure out the missing piece. So -4 squared plus root 5 squared would be 21. So that piece that's missing is root 21. What you'll want to make sure of to be successful in your Math Excel for school homework is you have to rationalize denominators. So a lot of the work here is just rationalizing denominators. So sine is the y value over the r value, which is root 5 over root 21. You're going to have to multiply the top and bottom by that square root of the square root of 21 then. And that will make the denominator a whole number, okay, or at least an integer. And when you do that, that's the answer they're going to want. So the first two, sine and cosine, when you find it, because that root 21's on the bottom of both of them, you have to rationalize. The last one is tangent, and that's just root 5 over -4. You could write that as negative root 5 over 4. It's the same answer. As long as one of the parts is negative, it should take the answer. And then if you want to flip-flop them, and that's how you find the other 3 trig functions. So I didn't write those all here. The Math Excel homework has a lot of those examples for you to look at. So you'll want to make sure that you practice those on your homework to get ready for your assessment. as you're dealing with those questions. The next scenario just is trying to figure out if stuff's positive or negative, which in actuality in trigonometry is probably one of the most important aspects of it. Because of technology, we can find answers and figure things out. What your calculator and technology can't do is do the intuitive thinking process about where things are positive and negative. It's strictly make a triangle with the x-axis. So what you'll notice on this first one is I made a triangle here in quadrant 3 because it said it was in quadrant 3, and I just look at what's positive and negative. In quadrant 3, the x value would have to be negative because I'm going backwards, and then down for the y value, so that's negative. R is always positive. No matter what, R is positive because R is the distance from the origin, and because of that, distances are always positive. And then you just want to do y divided by, or I'm sorry, x divided by y. It doesn't matter which one's which, it's just negative divided by negative, which would end up being a positive. The second one is a picture in quadrant 4, so you'll end up here with a negative divided by a positive, so a negative y value divided by a positive r value would be a negative. It's strictly positive or negative, so it's a 50-50 shot if you're not sure, but it's more so of where are you at in the quadrants in order to find that answer. Okay, this next question has a lot of stuff happening, so let's just deal with one thing at a time. This question, you need to figure out first off what's positive, what's negative, all of those aspects. So when you're looking at this situation with the 6 trig functions of this line, you'll notice here that it starts out as 3x plus y equals 0. The first thing you want to do is just solve for y. It's just a line, so that would be y equals negative 3x. So that would be a line going through the origin with a slope of negative 3, so down 3 over 1. Now what you'll notice here is I only drew the part that's down into the right, but there should also be a part that goes up into the left. The reason for that is because it says that x has to be greater than or equal to 0. So if x has to be greater than 0, that's from 0, the origin, going to the right. So it has to be this side, not the left side. Okay, so that's why in green here I have this picture that x is 1 because the slope is like 3 over 1, negative 3 over 1. So it's x is 1 and y is negative 3 because in quadrant 4, the x had to be positive, the y had to be negative. The r value is found just by doing Pythagorean theorem still. So that part could be found no matter what. It's just a matter of which one's positive and which one's negative as you find that situation. From there, you want to make sure that you're looking for the positive aspects, the negative aspects. So the sine piece here, so the sine aspect would be found by taking that negative 3, which is the y value, divided by r, which is 10. The only thing is you have to rationalize, so that'd be negative 3 root 10 divided by 10 by multiplying the top and bottom by both root 10. I put cosecant here because when you find cosecant, you want to do the reciprocal right away. Instead of waiting till the very end and then flipping it, flip from the very beginning, because if you have negative 3 over 10 to start with, it's going to be a lot easier just to flip this right away than it would be to do it later. Cosine would be 1, which is the x value divided by the r value, so that'd be 1 divided by 10. Rationalize the denominator, you get root 10 over 10. Secant would be its reciprocal. But you don't want to take the reciprocal of the answer. You want to take a reciprocal of before you rationalized it. So flip 1 over root 10, you just get root 10 over 1, which is root 10. Tangent would be the y value over x, which is kind of like slope. So the slope is negative 3 over 1. That's the slope, or the y value over the x value. And then the cotangent would be its reciprocal. The next couple slides deal with what are known as quadrantial angles. Make sure you understand how all 4 of these angles are drawn. They're always from the positive x coordinates, okay, or the x-axis. So they all go to the right to start with. You'll notice all the positive ones go in the counterclockwise direction, and then the negative angle goes in a clockwise direction. And it's a matter of how many times around you go. So this 540 and 180 are actually the exact same thing. So that's something that's important to make sure that you realize in that question. We're going to use those to help answer some things. So 90 degrees, this is 180. 540 is the same as 180, and negative 990 is actually the same as 90 as it looks straight up and down from that situation. Another thing that you want to write down besides just the x and y ideas is the quadrantial angles. And this is what's known as the beginnings of the unit circle. I'll be honest, I don't use the unit circle as much as probably other trig teachers probably do because it's just a whole lot of memorizing for nothing. But I think in these situations it probably would be helpful. All it is a unit circle is everything that's 1 away from the origin. So it's a circle with radius 1. So that's why I've circled there and said r is 1. So r has to be 1 in all of these situations. And then these ordered pairs are the only ones you really need to have figured out. And that's just the x and y coordinates at 0, at 90, 180, and 270 degrees. And you'll notice that all of those pieces are used to help find answers on the next slide. So if I want to find sine of 90, sine is y over r, the y value over the r value. And at 90 degrees, which is right up here, the y value is 1. And the r value is 1 on this whole circle, so it's 1 over 1, which is 1. Tangent of 180 is over here. So tangent would be the y value of 0 divided by the x value of -1, and 0 divided by -1 is 0. Cosine of 540, I don't care about 540. On the last slide, we just said that 540 looks just like 180, so I just do that instead. So I go here to 180, and I look at the x value, which is -1, divided by the r value, which is 1. And divide that out, and you get -1. We just said that -990, if we drew it out, is the same as 90 degrees. So really you want to probably practice knowing where the angle's at. And these quadrantial angles will always end up in one of these 4 spots. Okay, and these are the 4 that cause the most problems for students historically. So you want to just make sure you know these 4 really well. And this is the same as cosecant of 90. Now to find cosecant of 90, what I would probably find is sine of 90 and then flip it. Well, we already found sine of 90 at the top here. Sine of 90 was 1 over 1. Take the reciprocal, it's still 1. So cosecant of -990 is the same as cosecant of 90, which ends up being the reciprocal of sine of 90. But because sine of 90 is 1, it also ends up being 1. Okay, that will be where we stop for today. I know that was kind of jumbled in a few pieces. I think you're really going to want to work on the homework aspects of some of these questions as you're working through this section. Take some good notes and make sure you fix that part about cotangent. I think I had fixed it here. There it is. So cotangent should be x over y, not y over x. I apologize for that mishap at the beginning. But that also brings up a good point. If you feel like something's incorrect when I wrote it, please let me know. I mean, that's no different than in class. I sometimes can write things incorrectly. I'll try not to do that and double check things. Sometimes I catch it as I go through, so I'll try to make a note of that as well. I hope everyone has a good day, and don't forget about homework 1 and assessment coming up, and then homework 2 will be assigned soon. Have a good day, everyone.